Joe Budden has been the subject of conversation in hip-hop and social media for more than a decade now. What is it about the Jersey-bred MC that seems to intrigue and agitate spectators in the hip-hop community? And how is it that he has been able to stay on the minds of hip-hop heads for so long? Is Joe Budden irrelevant, or as some of his critics state, a has-been? Joe Budden has historically offered opinions that have not been the most popular in hip-hop. One man armed with his own opinions in an era of safe babies and fence straddlers, Joe Budden sets out to excite the minds of hip-hop spectators. Contrary to popular belief, one cannot simply dismiss Joe Budden altogether as an MC. The Harlem-born, Jersey-raised MC released his self-titled debut album in 2003. With the lead single, Pump It Up, the East Coast MC seemed next in line for the spotlight. Joe Budden's release was a part of a new wave of East Coast lyricists, such as Fabulous and Lloyd Banks, who relied heavily on punchlines. Prior to his debut, Joe Budden was able to garner the attention of the hip-hop community with a succession of stellar mixtape moments. Notable underground verses on several mixtape series from the likes of DJ K Slay, DJ Envy, and Cutmaster C gave Joe Budden attention from hip-hop publications and admiration from fans alike. In 2003, hip-hop was in a different mood than it is now. Large record labels were still a factor, and signing the next hottest spitter off the streets was similar to the NBA draft. Albums were actually selling by the boatload in hip-hop. In fact, in 2003, the biggest selling album in the year of music was 50 Cent's debut album, Get Rich or Die Trying. Record labels like Def Jam, Rockefeller, Interscope, and Cash Money continued to mill through the streets for the next breakout rap star. Joe Budden, with his debut on Def Jam, was next up to grab the spotlight. The album Joe Budden was released in 2003, going on to sell north of 400,000 units in the United States. The album received favorable reviews. By the standard of the climate in hip-hop in 2003, however, the album was considered a commercial flop. A commercial flop only compared to the amount of albums that other rappers were selling at the time. Many critics of Def Jam hinted to the way Joe Budden was marketed. It appeared the label was trying to build Joe Budden as the next Jay-Z, even if one were to listen to songs such as Walk With Me, Survivor, and Calm Down. It was clear Joe Budden was more than a Jay-Z knockoff. However, hip-hop is a competitive sport, and the word began to spread around town about Joe Budden possibly being able to lyrically take out the top MC of the East Coast at the time, Jay-Z. During 2000 to 2005, Jay-Z was seen exclusively as the premier MC in the mainstream media, but that did not stop up-and-coming MCs from gunning for Jay-Z's spot, and that also did not stop Jay-Z himself from preemptively striking at hungry up-and-coming rappers on the rise on the East Coast. One of the more controversial plays in hip-hop was a freestyle remix of Joe Budden's single, Pump It Up. On the track, Jay-Z proceeds to lay down the lyrical law as he sees fit, and in classic Jigga fashion, laid in the track with subliminal after subliminal. Some saw it as a direct form of disrespect. Others saw it as Jay-Z just riding the latest hottest beat. Jay-Z, despite being the premier MC on the East Coast at the time, was not afraid to attack the mixtape circuit as well. Many rappers historically have found their success on the underground by the way of the mixtapes, but there were a lot of A-list rappers that wanted to maintain their edge and flex their lyrical muscle by jumping on the hottest beats on mixtape. Jay-Z, Nas, Fabulous, and 50 Cent with his pioneering G-Unit radio series gained even more prominence on the mixtape circuit. Whatever the case may have been for Jay-Z finessing the Pump It Up track in such a passive-aggressive manner, Joe Budden did not hesitate to seize the opportunity to flex his skills as well. Joe Budden neutralizes Jay-Z's beat jacking move by returning to his own track. In what was a defining moment in rap, Joe Budden was able to lay his verse down behind Jigga's freestyle, and the moment, as some have compared it to when Allen Iverson crossed over Michael Jordan, was a showstopper. Many people in the blogosphere, radio stations, magazine publications were talking about how Hov may have met his match in the braggadocio department. Jay-Z's bout with Nas was seen universally as the battle of the atypical lyricist versus a flashy rapper with a big name and clever wordplay. And many fans have argued that Nas completely destroyed Jay-Z on the track, Ether. However, Joe Budden was a hybrid, hungry young MC, equally as cocky as Jay-Z. Joe Budden's lyrical pedigree pulled from the likes of Rakim, Big L, Nas, Jay-Z, and many more. Hov was not able to simply dismiss Joe Budden as a novelty act in hip-hop. In fact, even though many rappers have tried, no one really could dismiss or move Joe Budden from the conversation of talented lyricists in hip-hop. Joe Budden is a deadly MC for many reasons. His narrative skills are uncanny, as illustrated on tracks like 3 Sides to Every Story, Secrets, and even the Opus track, Who Killed It. Joe Budden's narrative skills did surpass many of his contemporaries, but Budden was not only well versed in the art of storytelling, but also the sport of battling. Joe Budden has one of the most battle-tested histories in hip-hop. Budden seemed to directly or indirectly agitate many lyrical assassins in the industry at the time, and one of the many wordsmiths lurking in hip-hop's waters was The Game. The Game, much like Budden, had made a name for himself on the mixtape circuit, and much like Budden, The Game had no problem stepping into the arena with any rapper, big or small. The Game began decimating many of his opponents on the underground circuit on the West Coast around 2000. The Game, however, had been in a label limbo on Interscope, but when the Jamaica Queens rapper 50 Cent arrived at the label, The Game was added to the G-Unit General Squad, until The Game was able to drop his now classic debut, The Documentary. The rapper had been appearing randomly in many G-Unit videos. Up until that point, Joe Budden and The Game had no disagreements with each other's career paths. The respect was mutual for both MCs. However, because of the climate of hip-hop was still at an all-time high right on the heels of the classic Nas and Jay-Z battle, many people in and outside of the industry were nudging rappers towards each other to spark a lyrical slugfest. And that is exactly what happened to The Game and Joe Budden. As The Game continued his mixtape spree and appearing alongside fellow G-Unit members in videos, Joe Budden released a freestyle on a DJ Clue mixtape where he stated he should be in the G-Unit vid with all of those gangster actors. The Game promptly responded with the track Budden, basically reworking Ice-T's classic Colors. The Game referenced the DJ Clue Joe Budden freestyle and stated in the song that him and Joe Budden had a long-standing casual respect for each other, and he had no idea where it went wrong. The Game was able to defend his perceived to be smirched honor. Budden was able to retaliate with the track Game Over. The Game Over track was riddled with punchline after punchline, which to the public gave Budden the edge over Game. The Game at that time was not a punchline heavy MC, but nonetheless, The Game was a verbal assassin in his own right. The Game was able to respond with 200 bars, which allowed for Game to completely vent over the Snoop and Dre deep cover instrumental. The two MCs would later square away any differences they had before, and The Game even appeared alongside Joe Budden on the Padded Room album for the song called The Future. Joe Budden was able to be one of the first rappers to take advantage of social media with the likes of Joe Budden TV. There, Joe Budden was able to showcase more of his personality. One thing people found out quickly was that Joe Budden was unapologetic with his opinions. And Joe Budden was able to take advantage of social media when it seemed like mainstream publications in hip-hop had blackballed him. Budden also released a series of successful mixtapes called Mood Music, where Joe Budden was able to showcase more of his artistic side that he did not get to showcase on his Def Jam debut. Many people have stated that the highlight of the series was Mood Music 2. On Mood Music 3, it seemed like Joe Budden had found new vigor to go at an old lyrical sparring partner, Jay-Z, on the track called Talk to Him. In classic Jay-Z-like fashion, Joe Budden never mentioned Hov's name, but for the fans who were listening at the time, everyone knew who Joey was talking to, or at least suspected. Joe Budden at the time was in disputes with his record label Def Jam, and the president of Def Jam was none other than Jay-Z. Jay-Z's tenure at Def Jam as its president was rocky. Initially, the idea of Jay-Z, a premier rapper heading one of hip-hop's largest record labels, was met with praise from fans and rappers alike. That of course quickly soured when disgruntled rappers at Def Jam began to publicly lash out at his sitting president, Sean Carter. Some of the rappers that were upset with Jay-Z included LL Cool J, DMX, and Joe Budden. When Budden recorded the subliminal lace track Talk to Him, many dismissed Joey as a has-been rapper looking to get the attention of Jay-Z, and many talking heads in hip-hop figured that Hov was too big to respond to Joe Budden. After 3 years at Def Jam as president, Jay-Z stepped down. Later in 2009, Jay-Z dropped Blueprint 3, and on the song Reminder, he antagonizes Joe Budden by stating, "Tell them ordinary Joes button up." The fact that Jay-Z took his time to respond to a seemingly forgotten rapper 2 years later showed that Joe Budden's lyrical prowess was felt among hip-hop heavyweights. Joe Budden throughout his career faced off with many opponents in the industry, and again Budden found himself engaged with another hip-hop heavyweight, Method Man. To be fair to both Method Man and Joe Budden, Vibe.com was the only reason why these two wordsmiths had found themselves at odds with each other in the first place. Vibe.com had released a rap bracket which was similar to fantasy football, but only for hip-hop. Joe Budden appeared on the list against Method Man. Vibe.com had given Method Man the nod for being able to lyrically devour Joe Budden in an imaginary rap battle. Of course, Joe Budden would not go silently into the night accepting Vibe's result. On Joe Budden TV, Budden expressed his displeasure with the results and questioned the legitimacy of Vibe.com. Budden went on to insinuate that he not only disagreed with the results, but he would beat Method Man in a freestyle or pre-written battle rap. The hip-hop community was up in arms. Method Man, for the most part, remained silent, as his Wu family took offense to Budden's assertions. Method Man stated in an interview that for the most part, he was not interested in a rap battle with Joe Budden, and he preferred to keep to himself and his Wu-Tang family. Raekwon was not as peaceable about the situation overall, and he decided to confront Joe Budden at the Los Angeles stop of the Wu-Tang's Rock the Bells tour. A scuffle ensued, and a member of Raekwon's camp punched Joe Budden in the eye. During that time, Joe Budden was a part of the supergroup Slaughterhouse. Included in the group was Detroit native Royce da 5'9" and known Crip member Crooked I. Both men were not happy with what had taken place against their lyricist brother. Raekwon and Wu-Tang affiliates were confronted directly by Royce da 5'9" and crew. Royce was extremely agitated. Crooked I with Crip members took to the stage, taunting the assailants during a COB Slaughterhouse performance. Luckily for hip-hop fans, cooler heads prevailed, and later, Joe Budden and Method Man were able to make peace with each other. Joe Budden even paid homage and respects to Method Man on the track Forgive Me off of his Escape Route album. Prior to joining Slaughterhouse, Royce and Joey were on pace to have one of the most anticipated battles in hip-hop. Royce da 5'9" participated in an all-hip-hop battle competition against Bay Area rapper Mr. Fab. And during the all-hip-hop battle, Royce was never really able to find his groove. And after the battle, the nod respectfully went to Mr. Fab. Many fans in hip-hop were surprised, given the lyrical caliber of Royce da 5'9". Even Joe Budden poked fun at the surprise defeat of Royce da 5'9" by Fabby Davis. Mr. Fab went on a celebratory tirade in the media, agitating Royce da 5'9". Royce da 5'9" then dropped a classic diss track called Who Got Bodied on the Bar Exam 2. On the same track that Royce was tearing apart Mr. Fab lyrically, he takes a break in the middle of the track to switch flows over Joe Budden's Pump It Up track, sending a few warning shots at Budden. The two titans eventually were able to put aside their differences to help form one of hip-hop's dream teams, Slaughterhouse, with Joel Ortiz and Crooked I, which was a blessing to the souls of many hip-hop fans. Joe Budden has managed to weather the storm throughout his career. Budden has had other notable battles with solid lyricists in hip-hop as well, including Prodigy, who Budden was able to make amends with later. Saigon, another notable wordsmith, Budden has sharpened his lyrical sword with. Despite what many of his detractors may say, Joe Budden is a giant lyricist in hip-hop. Joe Budden, during the 2003 Def Jam era, all the way through to his Mood Music series, was one of the few rappers to bring all of his emotions on a track, was able to make the audience really feel him. Budden, much like The Game and Big L, were some of the best MCs to stretch an instrumental out for 10 plus minutes of mind-numbing lyrics. Despite the public's misperception of Joe Budden, he will remain the misunderstood master in hip-hop.